simply the sadness that I think we all felt that the hospital opening was not going to take place. And I believe that is just a technical issue that is being worked out. But I think beyond just the symbolic opening of that great facility is the fact that that opens up even more interest in the waterfront project. But could you just fill us in on where we are with the hospital, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about where we are with the waterfront project?
So from my understanding, the delay with the new, I'll call it what they technically call it, a freestanding medical facility, is that they had an HVAC issue with the units there, and from what I understand, it was a fairly significant issue in terms of catastrophic failure on a device, but not something that was dangerous or something that was going to cause any kind of personal harm. But nevertheless, to get occupied and to get moving and to have a fully functioning facility, they did need to get that repaired before moving forward. And better that it happened, a few days before we were supposed to have a ribbon cutting than a few weeks after it was occupied, and then they had to scramble and ensure that things could operate smoothly with that failure. So it delays things a bit, but it does ultimately give them the opportunity at the facility to ensure that everything's in working condition, and we'll be having a ribbon cutting there soon. Long time coming, I think, for folks who have lived here and have seen the decline of the building on the waterfront as it's aged and moved beyond its full useful life.
Well, I can't help but think that also what they're doing to the streetscape on Route 50 is a terrific contribution. It seems like there could have been all sorts of abandoned buildings there, and they came in with a really attractive project.
They did, and for Cambridge, I think having the University of Maryland medical system make a decision that it was important to get that facility online and operating and built out is a great thing. And I think it also does another thing too. It gives the opportunity for that shopping center, which is already doing much better than it was after it laid somewhat fallow for years. It gives an opportunity now for the few pad sites that remain to be even more attractive, because you're going to have even more activity, more people, more daily interactions going on over there at Cambridge Marketplace. So even beyond giving us a new medical facility, I think it makes the economic opportunity at that site and what that can bring for the community as a whole even more viable than it already has been.
I have been hearing from people that they want a little bit more information about when the hospital will actually release that property, and the timetable, but also at least I have not heard much from the waterfront group, and so maybe you have more information to share.
The latest I've heard on that, there was a meeting that CWDI had jointly with the University of Maryland Medical Systems Shore Regional Director, Ken Cazell, who a lot of folks here are familiar with, and with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, I believe 2 weeks ago, and that took place at DHCD's headquarters. And my understanding is that there is a bit of a gap to bridge in terms of the transfer of the property. And I think it's ultimately a situation where expectations have changed on the part of CWDI, on the part of DHCD, and on the part of UMMS over the course of the last 2 years since this discussion began. The University of Maryland system has to do what's best for their full system, of course, and also what's best for the communities they serve. So I think there's going to be some more negotiation that has to continue. I think that CWDI is in a good position. They know that they've got the support of the city on getting this thing in their hands and ready for development. And they know that they've got the Department of Housing and Community Development's support in that regard as well. So now it's just a matter of moving those negotiations forward. And look, I think there was an expectation at one time that the University of Maryland medical system would simply transfer this thing for, $1 and a handshake. And I don't think that that's realistic at this point for a couple of reasons. One, I think we've just seen really transformative things happen over the course of the last year and a half, and UMS has to be cognizant of that. And for UMS as well, their makeup and their board is almost totally different than it was when these discussions first began a few years ago. They have seen some controversy. There was a situation where UMS was engaged in some dealings with the former mayor of Baltimore, Catherine Pugh, and that led to a number of resignations from their board. So one of the things that we've got to understand as well is that the individuals making this decision aren't the same individuals that started the discussion a couple of years ago. And so there's going to be some more relationship building and things like that to make this thing happen and bring it to fruition.
I wanted to congratulate you on getting the interim city manager on board. David Deutsch, is that his name?
It is. And he'll be joining us on Town Hall, which will be airing Tuesday, October 5th at noon, and then will be replayed on WHCP later in the week.
Very good. Spoken like the host. Will he, what's going to be the timeline, I guess, for the long-term permanent replacement, the process there, and will he be eligible to apply for that slot?
He would technically be eligible, but he is not interested in the position. He enjoys what he's doing now, taking interim roles in different communities and aiding as a headhunter of sorts to find the right fits for communities in positions like city manager. He's done police chief and department head searches as well. So he really enjoys that, and he's done that now for a number of communities, including Westminster, Cheverly, University Park, Maryland, Pocomoke City. So while we've really enjoyed having David so far, I don't think he's going to apply himself for the position. He expects to be here through the end of calendar 21 and may continue into calendar 22. We have a council meeting tonight, October 4th, to review some of our administrative procedures for engaging with professional services like a headhunting firm. It has been, I think, the expectation that we would engage David to act as headhunter as well as interim city manager, because it gives a really unique perspective for someone that's going out and trying to perform a search, and it gives them an opportunity to have a more, I think, thoughtful approach to it, because they're seeing what the challenges are and what the successes are within the organization. So the expectation is that a search would take between 3 and 5 months, and we hope to have someone first part of calendar 22 that's going to be a permanent position holder, and we hope to have them here before we start the budget process so that they can kind of get in and get moving on that. The requirement is, of course, that someone become a full-time resident of Cambridge. They have to have 5 years of experience, either as a department head or city manager, or something that's considerably similar to that. And they have to have a master's in public administration or in an MBA. So, it does narrow the pool of candidates, I think, some, but we're going to work really hard to find someone that's got a good track record. David himself, he was in suburban York County, Pennsylvania, as their township manager, and then later was in Bowie for 23 years. And I'm not certain that we'll hire someone that's in Cambridge for 23 years, but we'd like to have someone that's going to be here for a long time and that has a great track record and has a lot of experience in helping to grow and stabilize organizations.
His top non-hiring priorities would include?
You say his top non-hiring priorities?
Right. What else do you want him to tackle right away?
Well, so far the real focus has been on the gaps organizationally that we've seen. So there's been a lack of information sharing, and we've already now with David in place, he's got department head meetings back on schedule, and we've not had them for 2.5 years. So coordination between departments, but then also hitting some of the low-hanging fruit, right? We've got positions that are funded and that are open and that have not seen hires. So we're trying to get some hires in those positions. And he's really seen human resources as greatly important as well. And so we've given him instruction to go ahead and put together a job description for a human resources assistant at this time, so we can immediately get that need addressed, before we look any further at a department head level position or anything like that. Let's get somewhere with it rather than just treading water.
Can I just go back a little bit to the waterfront topic and understand a little bit more about where you say there's still going to be a need for a negotiation. And I guess I might have been one of those people who thought that there was going to be a fairly easy transfer of property or land. Do you see complications now? I mean, it's a little bit, it strikes me as a little bit late in the game to have that kind of different point of view, but.
I don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to disparage, certainly. And I also don't want to call into question the realism of individuals that have been involved in this. But I think that everyone was operating with an expectation that there would be an easy transfer without actually having a discussion that would lead us to a knowledge that there would be an easy transfer. And I think that there will still be ultimately a transfer that's very agreeable to the city and to CWDI and to UMS and to DHCD and all the other partners in this thing. But I think there's a little bit more here on the ownership side than folks had expected or realized. And I think we're in a position right now where, as a result, it just requires coming to the table and hammering out what those expectations are, because ultimately UMS doesn't want a derelict hospital that they've got to maintain and keep folks out of, and all the problems that come with having a mothballed facility. And City of Cambridge doesn't want to see the facility sit on the waterfront empty and dragging down the potential of the project, and nor does DHCD or CWDI. So I think we all see the same outcome in the end. It's just a matter of hammering out those little details. And I think that perhaps there had been a bit too much optimism that those details wouldn't need to be hammered out. But ultimately, I think that you still see a transfer occur. I don't want to put timelines on things, but in a fairly quick fashion, in a fashion that's not going to leave people with any kind of concern or qualms.
COVID rates continue to be higher in Dorchester County. What is the city doing to try and get that movement in the right direction?
So I've actually got a call that I'm going to be making tomorrow to some folks at the Dorchester County Health Department, and I've spoken a couple of times at some events to the folks that are performing their vaccinations, and they continue to see issues within certain segments of the community, especially lower socioeconomic segments within the community that are showing hesitance and resistance to the idea of vaccination. And look, honestly, perhaps with some good reason, because it is very much a very different world, and it is difficult to just accept that things are easy and we're ready to move into a new environment. But at the same time, we've got to get the vaccination rates to the level where folks are able to either not catch the virus, of course, or at the very least, if they do become infected, have a chance of very low symptom or no symptom situation. But ultimately, the situation here is one where we've got to continue to work with the health department and try to reach these communities that have been fairly difficult to reach for them for a number of reasons. And the health department, to their credit, has identified and has made a very concerted effort to reach these individuals. It's just a matter of continuing to build trust and relationships to see it happen.
But are there other things that you'd like to update the community on?
So, we're in a situation right now, I think, where we're starting to approach the holidays, and with COVID-19, as was just discussed, we've got to be cognizant of how we interact and what we do so that we don't continue transmittal. And we want to ensure that the community is able to have a healthy and a safe holiday, and we're able to get back to some of the traditions that we've seen in the past: trick-or-treating, a real train garden, a Christmas parade, all these things that the community has loved for decades. And last year they were lost because infection rates were so high nationwide. And now I think we're at a point where we've seen transmission and infection rates in the county go up. And I just want to remind folks that continued vigilance is necessary if we're going to overcome this. And we have to overcome this if we're going to have a continued healthy community.
Well, thank you again. And we will see you next month.
All right. Thank you, folks.